advance, and I think my presentation will be the most technical one, and perhaps it will be complementing to what John already said and Nicole as well, because I'll try to walk you through it quickly and share our experiences how we evaluated certain interventions that focused on a provision of early access legal aid services. Oh, and I'm done. I know. Can we do me full screen again? Sorry. to the first slide, please. Sure, you'll be happy if that was it. Okay, basically I'll start, not to waste time. We're gonna, yes, please. You can go to, thank you. So yes, that's what I wanted to say. I will share with you two examples, Sierra Leone and Malawi. And I will start with Sierra Leone, and I think it would be helpful to just put you in the context of what we did. So we piloted a scheme in Sierra Leone that focused on the entry point to the criminal justice system, aka the police station. That was our hypothesis, to try to find where is the clogging issue. And we figured that if we place paralegals in this case, because Sierra Leone is a country of only 400 lawyers, and as we heard in the previous days, most of them are based in Freetown, the capital, and most of them do prefer to work in the corporate law, so especially in rural areas, it's very hard to get access to counsel. So we chose 4 pilot sites that were outside of Freetown, and that roughly covered between 30 and 40% of the population in general. And we co-designed the pilot itself with the local civil society organization called Team Up for Justice that uses paralegals to provide community services in terms of legal advice in civil and criminal matters to people in their communities. And we ran this pilot between 2009 and 2013, and you can see the hypothesis there. So basically access that early intervention will help the criminal justice system in the long run. And it will also help communities, not only the criminal justice actors. And so we did it in 2 sections. We first collected the database, the baseline, not the database, the baseline at the same time when we launched the pilot in 2009. And then at the end of the pilot in 2012-ish, we also asked our evaluators to go back to Sierra Leone and follow up and see if there was any difference at all. So as you can see, the evaluation methodology was created and conducted by the Center for the Study of African Economies at Oxford University. And so basically it's a small group, but also on the ground they recruited enumerators who went around and collected all data that these guys at the Oxford University later put together and evaluated. And as you can see also on the slide, the basic goal was to verify our hypothesis, if this was indeed true, if the problem, or one of the main problems in the criminal justice system, and at that point in Sierra Leone, the pretrial detention population was over 50%. If that was indeed somewhere hidden in at the police stage of the whole structure of the system. And also we wanted to see if the pilot that we are proposing to scale up nationwide, if it was indeed working for the context of Sierra Leone. And finally, we thought it would be beneficial to come up with some maybe policy advice and advocacy strategies of what can be changed in current practices. And we basically had 3 types of sites. Here I mentioned only 2, the treatment site and the control site. And basically the treatment site is our 3 pilot sites where paralegals worked on a daily basis in police stations. Control sites are where paralegals were not present, and only data from these sites, police stations, courts, prisons, was collected and later evaluated by the CSAE Center. You can also see that it was quite large-scale evaluation, thousands of interviews, thousands of case file reviews. Also, it included interviews with criminal justice stakeholders, police officers, judges, prosecutors, some lawyers, and also the detainees themselves to interview and see how this whole experience is impacting them. This is just one example from the final report. The report itself had qualitative and quantitative aspects. So the guys at the Oxford University, they are quite economics oriented, and they like putting together that, but also there is a narrative that explains the problem in the system. And that's basically first of its kind test of one of their methodologies, difference in difference. And you can see the red line is the control side, so basically that's where paralegals were not present, and the treatment, you see it goes up. So the gray shaded area is the period of intervention, aka the 3 years of the pilot. So key findings, as you can see, of their evaluation is throughout 3 years, of course it went up. First it was about 30% of assistance by paralegals. By the last year of the pilot, it was paralegals were assisting up to 70% of all those people that were arrested and brought into police station. Also, the use of bail increased, which was a significant finding because we found out that in some sites, judges were simply refusing to use the option of bail and therefore by default keeping everybody in pretrial detention. They also found out that the pilot impacted the prison population, and in Sierra Leone's pretrial detainees, if they were sent to court but their court hearing didn't happen, they were not returned to police station, they were sent directly to prison to await for their next court hearing. So by filtering through the case files and assisting the detainees, paralegals were able to reduce the prison population when we talk about pretrial detainees by 20% versus the control sites where they were not working. And briefly, I want to cross-compare our other evaluation in Malawi. And it was done with a slightly different methodology and only by one person. So I just wanted to show you different examples where you can use a group of people and experts, or only one person, perhaps like John does. And this one person, he's a professional evaluator, so he did everything himself. He developed the methodology, he went and collected the data, and then he evaluated it and wrote the final report. And the same, we had the pilot with PASI, a very quite famous civil society organization, not only in Malawi, but across the world. And they also placed their paralegals in 2 pilot sites there. So, and it was also done, the same evaluator, and I think it was helpful to have the same person do the baseline and evaluation. So he did it prior to the beginning of the pilot in 2009, and also he came back to Malawi to evaluate the work of paralegals in 2012. And complementing to John, what John was saying, basically before he designed the methodology, he posed the questions for himself and for the pilot and the kind of those who manage the pilot, what we want to evaluate. And here you can see the examples of questions that he used to design the methodology. And here I just wanted to give you an example of what his work looked like. So it was 5 stages, a scoping study where he just went around, got a feel on what's going on, talked, got a better idea what kind of data he would be able to collect and what kind of access he would be granted during his evaluation. Then he went back home and he created interview design, he created data collection forms that he later piloted to see if this indeed was doable or he was asking for too much and this data simply doesn't exist. And then, so he went back, then collected the data, did his interviews and workshops with detainees and criminal justice actors, and finally he went back home and wrote the report. That report was actually over 500 pages. It's very interesting, but that probably could be, not everybody, especially ministries of justice, would be reading that. And examples of key findings. So he had a heavy focus on poverty alleviation. And you can see some examples of how unnecessary pretrial detentions was impacting the detainees themselves, the communities, and also I thought it was a quite interesting finding that he said introduction of paralegals would create a new kind of occupation in the country, so that would contribute to economic development in the country as well. And he did some estimates how many paralegals Malawi would need to handle the whole system. Also, he did the quantitative analysis and findings, and here you can see that PASI was able to assist 49% of all registered arrestees. And I wanted to point out that for half of those, they were able to secure the drop of charges. So those people should not have been in detention or arrested in the first place. Also, you can see significant number that PASI does educational workshops for detainees, court staff, various criminal justice actors, and for communities to educate them to understand better what is the criminal justice system, what are their rights, what are the changes in laws. Also, I think another important finding was that paralegals assisted with contacting the family of detainees, because quite often it was missed in action kind of thing. The detainee was arrested and the family had no idea where they were. And I'm trying to finish up as well. So I think here I would like to point out that another finding was that PASI was able to contribute to a significant drop in pretrial detention population, and that's my bullet point number 2. Before PASI came into the scene, the pretrial detention population was 50%. After probably a year of their intervention, it went down to 18% due to the work of paralegals and them screening the files and providing basic legal advice. And at the end of 3 years of the pilot, it went down to 16.7%. So that's quite, that's defiltering the overcrowded prison system and criminal justice system as it is. Also, you can see that bail was being used the same as in Sierra Leone. Criminal justice relevant actors were more keen to use bail options for those people. So here he had like 13 questions, and this presentation will be available also on the USB stick. So it's text heavy. I just wanted you to read it if you're interested and make sense out of it without me standing next to you. And also at the publications room, there are detailed reports about that if you want to read. And cost-benefit analysis, I'll finish up with that. I think that's the most interesting, and we talked about costs here. So I thought it was quite creative of the evaluator to basically calculate how much lawyers would cost to provide these basic services versus how much paralegals would cost. Also, he came up with how much would it cost to make this model nationwide, and where we could save costs. So you can see the cost of lawyers is way much more than the cost of paralegals. And also, he also came up with saving costs in not holding people in unnecessary pretrial detention. And basically, final key recommendations that I wanted to point out, we're not only advocating for paralegals, but a mix of actors in the system with a consistent monitoring and evaluation to assess what works, what can be changed to accommodate the context of the country better. And also, it would be very helpful because he found out that criminal justice issues and a theme in general was not on the priority list of the government, which posed a lot of, probably the same as Jordan, which posed a lot of issues, and when you want to drive change, what do you do when people who sit on the top are simply not interested in that? And I'll finish up with that. Thank you.